obviously a lot of seniors in there. You know, out of respect for those guys, just want to make sure to spend some significant time with them. And ultimately, I would tell you it's important that all parts of our organization, in particular the players, um, and really emphasize that with our other guys, that we spent time telling those guys what they've done for the program, their example, their approach. There's some really special players in that group that have not only been productive on the field, we also had a lot of guys that worked their tail off throughout the week that maybe never get to play, right? They have contributed to our team in a major way. So, um, yeah, that's always a tough time. I do want to compliment the crowd tonight. I thought our fans were fantastic. I mean, we continue to sell out these games, and certainly not only that, but their impact, right? I thought they were a factor tonight, and we're very thankful for that. No doubt it was special in there tonight, over 90,000. We continue to do that, and I think that speaks to the place. You know, this place has impacted a lot of people, and certainly we're thankful for them showing up tonight, doing their part. You know, I think that you know, when we look back at the last couple of weeks, you know, we have the lead in the fourth quarter multiple times. You know, and I think when you're coaching a team, you know, that has the makeup of this team this year, there's got to be, we have to use this experience. You know, there's a ton of players in that locker room that are going to be back next year. And look, we haven't been able to finish. That's the bottom line. And I think we're learning how to do that. We've been in position to do that. But ultimately, I think as we build a team that's made up of veterans, it's going to be important that we, at some point, you know, the old adage, you fall down 7 times, eventually, you know, the 8th time you get up and you finally get it done. I think at some point, this group, the experience that they got this year will pay off, right? And I think they get to go into this offseason with that experience, and that affects their entire attitude and approach to training, to practice, and certainly, you know, as you build another team dynamic, I'm hopeful that this group, you know, learns how to finish. And once we do that, I think there'll be a ton of momentum opportunities that come with that. So, you know, I'm thankful for this team, regardless of what anybody else says, okay? This team was a special team for a lot of reasons. You know, their ability to continue the resiliency, the toughness, and I'm not just talking about physical toughness. This game requires mental toughness, emotional toughness. It requires work. It requires investment. It requires sacrifice. And I think this group has continued to show up with a really good attitude and do their part to prepare. And then when the ball is put down, they've played with effort, toughness. We need to play with better detail. We need to execute better. There's no question about that. But I respect this group, and there's a lot of individuals in that locker room, man, that are made of the right stuff, you know. And I don't want to lose sight of that just because our record this year. So, you know, ultimately, we got to get up off the ground, you know. And I think we have to learn from failure. And growth comes through struggle. I think this season presents that opportunity. And look, we have work to do. You know, ultimately as a staff, you know, we have to evaluate where we're at, you know, from top to bottom, every inch of what we do. And we have to work hard to try to position the players and do better, right? I think that's what I'm consumed with. That's my purpose. And that's the way I view my platform, opportunity. The coaching profession is about the players, right? And doing the absolute best job we can do for the players to position them for success. and certainly football. That is on the field, but it's also everything that you do throughout the off season, and certainly how we can impact who they are as people and as students. So, we'll have an opportunity here. Players will be off tomorrow, and then we'll begin kind of a process Monday to Thursday. As we kind of turn the page and move forward here. What questions do we have?
Some conservative decisions in the first half when you had the lead, when you had a little bit of momentum and you had the lead. How much of that was a byproduct of, Max and the state of the offensive line, or do you wish you could have taken more shots at times?
Yeah, no, I think, there's no question. I think that we'll be able to look back at this thing and say, hey, maybe we should have taken a different approach. But at that point, defensively, we were really humming, right? I think we held them to like 85 yards in the first half. I'm not exactly sure what the numbers were, but they were struggling to move it, right? Obviously, the environment was a factor. They've got a young quarterback out there as well. So, and look, Max, I think he did his part. There's a handful of plays that he'd like to have back, and I can certainly do more to help the players. I think when we look back at it, there's going to be, whether it's a sack in the red area or a holding penalty right before the half, that contributes to the outcome, right? I think so. Florida State's got a really good defensive team, and they made their plays, but we also contributed at times. There are things that we can do better.
Yeah, Billy, the fourth quarter just kind of got away from you guys a little bit with discipline and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you kind of
discipline?
point?
What specifically are
Well,
we
50
to?
yards of penalties. And
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
But what do you kind of point to with that?
Yeah, I think it's a team that has, I think that tonight it was a handful of decisions or a handful of execution opportunities, misplays. It's been a little bit different each week. I think a number of things contribute. But, the penalties, obviously, those are things that we need to address. There's no excuse for those. I think some of those were technical and some of those were decision-making. I think a lot of things contribute to the result. But we've been in the fourth quarter with some really good football teams here the last couple of weeks. We've got to learn how to finish those games. There's no question about it. We have to coach better and play better.
Well, you say evaluating every aspect, and that's a very involved process. But where do you start with something like that?
Well, we have a we have a pretty exhaustive process that we go through each year. Whether we're undefeated and win championships, or we're sitting here where we're at as a program, right? So we're going to go through our process, right? And there'll be some things that come from that, right? And I think ultimately we do it each year, independent of the result or the outcome. And we're obviously trying to improve our systems and do what we think is in the best interest of the players. Ultimately that's our job. So that's what we're going to do.
Coach, the record from year 2 is worse than year 1. What do you see from your team or from the people in the program that there has been progress made and that you're still heading in the right direction?
Well, I think the youth in particular, I think, and look, I think it's important that we all understand that, we'll have a good nucleus of players coming back that have significant experience next year, whereas, evaluate the roster going into this year. I think that's important. I think look at the teams across the country that are having success. They have veteran football teams, right? They have a number of players that have been in the program for a number of years. We need to do that, right? We need to retain players. We need to continue to add quality players, and then we have to get better in-house at teaching, developing all parts of what we do. So that's what we're going to do. I think, we already have players in that locker room that are talking about getting to work, So I think that's an indication of a group that's much like they've competed, to be quite honest. I think they'll take that attitude and approach into the offseason.
Billy, you said a couple minutes ago that the defense was kind of humming in the first half. What changed in the second half? Anything you guys did differently, they did differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think they had 200 total offense, 224 yards, something like that. So, I mean, I think ultimately they got a touchdown on the first possession of the second half. You know, in the 4-minute situation, they popped the run to score the second touchdown, right? So, you know, I mean, I think we had opportunities to get off the field on third down. We didn't. You know, I think in the first half we did get off the field on third down. Made them play a lot of third downs. They converted, you know. But ultimately, I mean, I think we did a lot of good things on defense. When you hold a group to 224, you know, I think there's a lot of positive.
Billy, you talked about how your players are hurt and everybody. How about you? How do you handle 2 seasons like this in which you've had so many close calls, et cetera, like that?
Well, I think, you know, I view ultimately what motivates me is doing the best I can for our people, right, for the staff and for the players, you know. And, you know, I would tell you that this was 6 years as head coach, and we've had varying levels of success and failure. But ultimately, that's always the motivating factor for me, right, is doing my absolute best for the players and the staff. And look, I think we anticipated this being a challenge. You know, I mean, I think that we felt like it was going to be a challenge going in, and then when we got here, we realized we were in for a battle, right? And I think we're in the middle of that process. I have a tremendous amount of confidence, ultimately because of the people that I'm around every day, right? And that group of players being at the core of that. I think I maybe would feel different if we didn't compete, if we weren't in contention, if we weren't in the fight. You know, we're playing into the fourth quarter with some of the better teams in the country here down the stretch with a group, you know, that we all understood going into the year didn't have a ton of experience, right? So, you know, we're in the process of rebuilding the roster. We're in the process of learning how to make it work at the University of Florida, you know. And we're brought here for a reason. There's no denying that we have work to do, but I think what gives me confidence is what I see from the players, the growth I see, their words, their actions, the way they work, the selflessness, the sacrifice, their investment, you know, and I think everybody likes to use the word buy-in, you know, but I think for me it's more about action. And I think I've seen a ton of action from players, and not just how they compete on game day, but also I'm with them every day. So regardless of what anybody else says, I don't really care, okay, because I know the young men in that locker room, and I've got confidence and belief in that group. So, you know, you fall down, right? I mean, this is much like many of you have fallen down in your career at times. I mean, our young people, they came up short, you know, and they got to get up off the ground and learn and adapt and evolve and grow. And it's hard, right? But ultimately, I think we all can agree that a lot of the growth and improvement that we've been through in life came from some of the tougher times, right? And I think it's important for me to set a good example for them, right? Because I think ultimately that's what our young people need.
We're going to finish with Jacob and then Zach and 31 each, guys, please. Just relative to that challenge and the rebuild process, do you feel like you guys are maybe where you wanted to be, where you expected to be through 2 years? Are you hitting the benchmarks that you wanted to be hitting by this point?
Well, I think ultimately the record is what it is, right? But I think listen, there are things that, without question, okay, I think that we can do better, right? And I think we made some adjustments year one to year two. We need to continue to make adjustments. I don't know that there's an answer to that question, if that makes sense. You know, I think we're fighting every single day, right? We're trying to get a little bit better each day. And look, I think this is a very fluid dynamic, you know, relative to what we're trying to create and build here. So I've got belief in the players. That's what I would say. I've got belief in what I've observed from that group. Because ultimately, that's when we have a veteran team that takes complete ownership, you know, that's ultimately when we'll have the best opportunity to field a contender and eventually a champion.
Billy, when you spend the next few weeks evaluating your program and your staff and any changes you want to make, how do you have to, you know, weigh the youth that you have on the roster and maybe some areas that aren't where you want it to be, injuries and stuff like that, when you're evaluating things with your staff?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to remain as objective as possible. You know, I mean, I think ultimately, you know, because look, I think we work together as a team each day, you know, and I think we do have good morale, chemistry, camaraderie, whatever you want to say. It's one of the reasons why our team plays the way it does. But bottom line, we have to produce, right? We have to develop, we have to improve, and we all have responsibilities, you know. There's all parts of the organization where you're in leadership position, people have been entrusted to you, roles have been entrusted to you, and, you know, this is a production business, right? So, you know, I think you try to remain objective in terms of how you evaluate that. Certainly youth does contribute to that, but ultimately there's a lot that goes into each and every decision that you make, right? So it's the challenge of leadership, right? So, and there'll be some of that. There's going to be some of that, you know, and I go back to games about the players, right? And we owe it to do the absolute best for the players. What's in the best interest of the players? You know, the young people you've been entrusted with, that's the ultimate responsibility, right? So creating an environment where they can grow and develop as people, students, and players, and a lot of people contribute to that. So that's what we're going to do.
All right. Thank you, Coach. Thanks, guys.
Right.
Yeah, I guess what's kind of the mood around the team? Just you know, considering everything you guys went through this season and just where you're at as a group.
Obviously, we're disappointed. We didn't have the season we wanted to have. We put in a lot of work, and at times when it was needed, we didn't execute. And we understand that that's one thing I can say about this team. We didn't sugarcoat anything this season. Like, we took things for what it was, and we didn't execute in the moments we needed to. But looking at the positive side of things, guys understand that we have to restore order. You know, Florida is a prestigious program, and we understand that we have to put a better product on the field. And that was my message to the younger guys right after the game, that you have this next offseason, we got to get things going and restore order. So I would say the overall mood of the team is we're disappointed right now, but we're excited for the future.
Yeah, the defense obviously played at a very high level until late in the first half. I mean, you held them scoreless. What changed in the second half? What adjustments did FSU make, or what was different about the second half defensively for you guys, you think?
Yeah, I think second half they started to establish the run and kind of get their offense going a little bit. I think they had a little over 100 yards. I'm not sure, but yeah, we just didn't execute in those moments when we needed to. We didn't fit our gaps right sometimes and things of that nature. So, and that's what led to the loss.
Taraja, you've got a unique perspective. You come from a program that obviously had a lot of winning and kind of a one-year thing here. You got to observe a really young team go through some struggles. From that perspective, where do you see the building blocks? Where do you see the positive signs for the future that maybe the record wouldn't indicate?
Yeah, like I said, I have a unique perspective. I've seen both ends of the stick now. And I always say this program is not too far off. Coming from Ohio State, the things that Coach Napier has implemented for this program, the way the practices are, the workouts are, like, this program is inevitable. Like, I think it's just a matter of when this program's going to get back to where it has been. And like I said, I'm excited for the future. And I think the guys are buying into what Coach Napier is putting forth. And like it's obviously a rebuilding process, and it's going to take time, but the guys understand that there's also a sense of urgency.
Roger, what's next for you?
Yeah, the goal is I really haven't really thought much of it, but the goal is to obviously start training and try out for an NFL team and see what's next. I'm kind of just taking it a day at a time right now. I haven't made any real decisions, but that's my plan.
Back to that note when you're answering Zach's question, is there anything you can point to specifically maybe that Florida does or has or anything culture-wise that you think is similar or shows you that, hey, this team is close, like you said, to what Ohio State is?
Yeah, regardless of what the outside people think, I think Florida practices. Our practices, like, they're big boy practices. We practice physical. We're hitting, we're going after it. So, like I said, just the mentality that Coach Napier is trying to implement in the program, like being tough, playing tough. When teams play us, they're going to play a tough team, a team that's we aren't going to quit. We're going to keep going forward. So, and I see that. And as the guys keep buying into that, I think it's going to eventually show on the field for them.
So there was quite a handful of penalties that started to rack up in the second half. Do you think that there was just an increased amount of frustration, from the team as FSU's started to get a rhythm going? Like, how were you guys trying to counter that?
I think that's a great question. I think it all comes down to, like I said, execution. We have to execute. We have to be disciplined. And at times we failed to be disciplined. We failed to execute. And that goes back to what I was saying. We have to continue to buy into what the coaches implement and practice, and we have to execute in those moments.
You kind of addressed a little bit, but you're after the safety, though. What was kind of the vibe going, and then when did you feel it start slipping away?
Yeah, right after that safety, we understood. We've been in those games before where we were up and playing well, and then we dropped in our performance. So after that safety, the message to the team was let's keep going. Let's try to get this win. And obviously we didn't come out with that, and that's frustrating for us as players. But that just comes to that shows the resilience of this team. Like, even after we take these losses, the team is still, like, in a positive mindset. I understand that. To see the bigger picture of everything, like, even obviously we didn't do well this season, but the guys are still ready and eager for next year.
When you see some of the young guys contributing on defense, what's your kind of vision for things next year and beyond?
It's exciting to see. Like, you see those guys, they're getting those reps now. They're scarred now. They're taking those losses as young players, and eventually, as they grow into the program, they're not going to want to feel that feeling anymore. They're going to work a little bit harder, watch a little bit more film, and that's, like I said, I'm excited to see these younger guys as they grow into their college football careers.
Obviously for FSU, with Travis being out and Rodemaker getting his first start of the season, is the defense. What did you guys kind of expect that they were going to show offensively, and did kind of play out that way during the game?
Yeah, like I said, we lost our quarterback too, and we knew that for us, we had to rally around Max and make sure the supporting pieces stepped up and executed to help Max out. And we thought the same thing for Florida State, that they were going to utilize their other key players, their receivers, their tight ends, their running backs, and try to work the game around the quarterback to help them. So we knew we were going to get, like, quick, easy throws, and they were going to try to get their quarterback in rhythm.
And also Benson, their running back, got some good runs in the second half. How tough was it, especially since in the first half you guys had the ball a lot of the second half they got the ball a little bit more. How tough was that defensively to sort of handle as he got going?
It was definitely tough for us, especially because our coaches put together, adjustments for us to make at halftime. And like I said, we didn't execute those adjustments. And like I said, that's where the frustration comes in. But we understand as a defense, we got to do better. Simple as that, we got to do better.
Hi, 17-15, fourth quarter. You got him. I think it was at a 3rd and 15 situation. The quarterback takes off, and of course now it's a race between the quarterback and the 2 guys that are trying to keep him from getting a first down. And of course they call the targeting call on that one. I don't know what your opinion on that particular play was, but you see these guys working so hard, and then of course it all evaporates with one play because you lose a guy. And how different did that become at that particular moment?
It was definitely a tough moment. I think that was a tough call. As a defensive player, you're fighting, you're stretching to make sure the offensive player doesn't get the first down, and it's unfortunate that that was the call. And obviously that's momentum that takes away from us as a defense, but it was tough call.
But do you have to play with a swivel, because, one false move and the next thing you know, the officials are going to check to see if you were targeting somebody?
Yeah, at the end of the day, football is a game of inches. There's small errors that we make sometimes, and it's unfortunate, but that's the way the game is, and I understand they're trying to keep players safe, but in those moments, it's a game of inches. Obviously, you don't want the offensive player to get the first down, but targeting is targeting. So.
All right, guys. Appreciate it, Taraj.
Thank y'all. Yes, sir. Thank you, guys. Thank y'all.
All right, guys. Joined by Max Brown. Zach, we'll start us off right to your right, Max.
Max, obviously not the result you would want in your first career start. Could you take us through the emotions of the night? I mean, not only with the result, but I guess just to get a first career start out of the way.
Yeah, man. It was a crazy environment in there. I just want to give credit to my team right there. My defense and the offense, they battled the whole night. They battled. We didn't end how we wanted to, but I really want to give credit to those group of guys that really battled and competed. But yeah, man, I think it just comes down to be able to put points on the board in the red zone in our territory, man. Make it easier on our defense. They played lights out, but I think ultimately putting points on the board will make it easier for our defense for sure.
Max, how much did, if at all, the little bit of playing time you got last week in Missouri, how much did that help you, heading into this game?
Yeah, I think anytime you get any experience in any type of college SEC game, it'll ultimately help you out. But yeah, it got me somewhat prepared for this game. But yeah.
We'll go to. Would you have followed?
Yeah, and just in that first quarter, you guys go on that first drive, where you get a field goal attempt, second drive you get a touchdown. How much did that also help your confidence a little bit to sort of start fast a little bit in the first quarter?
Yeah, we were driving, we were doing what we need to do offensively and defensively, but I think just going out and getting 6-7 points instead of 3 ultimately changes the outcome of the game. So.
You're right in front of you, Max.
Yeah, you understandably seem very dejected. Just how tough is it for the season to end like this and tonight?
Yeah, it's tough, man. Anytime you see a group of guys, a group of seniors that have put their heart out the whole year, balled out, I can't give credit enough to the group of senior leadership that we've had. So I think having those group of guys, being able to watch them and watch them, how they acted, how they played, I think it's tough, man. It's tough going out on that note, but definitely something our team will learn from in the future. But it's hard losing on that note and seeing those group of guys and going out on that note.
When you're kind of chasing points there and they're able to pin theirs a little bit, just how tough was that down the stretch, with kind of keeping them at bay? Because you were getting knocked around a good bit late in the game.
I think we tried to go down there and put the ball in the end zone, score points towards the end, and it didn't work out how we wanted it to. So.
The trick play attempt in the second quarter seemed like it was a little slow developing. How much did that and some other negative plays kind of impact the offense? It seemed like there were a few. Obviously, the holding penalty late in the first half, and how tough was that, for you guys, I think, ultimately to overcome during the course of the game?
Yeah, I think there's a few plays in that first half especially, and in the second half that ultimately me in particular, have to be able to clean up. But I think going and watching the film and learning from it is huge. Being able to see the mistakes we made and for future terms not make the same mistakes. So.
Max, obviously, tough first outing. You were sacked 6 times, a lot of QB hurries as well. You were facing a really tough Florida State defensive front. So I just want to get your take. How are you trying to, counter the pass rush? And do you think it started to get to you as the game went on? Just them barreling at you. Like, do you think that was just a tough mental block to overcome?
Yeah, I think I need to do a better job, ultimately with protections and putting my center and my O-line in a better situation to make plays. So I think ultimately that comes down to me and my decision-making, seeing defenses, seeing the defensive shell and the pressures. So I think that's something that I can definitely improve on. But being able to see that, and I think putting my guys in a better situation, I think that's definitely something there.
Do you feel the sense of urgency to start work for next year almost immediately, like maybe take a day or two off and then get going?
Yeah, I think any time that you have the outcome that you don't want or even that you do want as a competitor, how do you want to respond? How do you want to take on the next day? How do you want to take on the next week, month, year of your life? I think that ultimately decides how much of a competitor you are. I think that's what makes this game so interesting and makes this whole process, it's a part of the story. So.
Do you feel this team is close?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the guys that we have in this locker room, I think I can't give credit enough to how far we've come as a team. I think what matters most is the group of guys in our locker room, and we've really harnessed in on how important that is for us. So I think going forward, that's definitely going to be a big take going into this offseason. So.
Fans or us on the outside will just see the record from year 1 to year 2. But inside the program, you were one of the first commits and one of the first class to sign. What do you see that shows you that there has been progress and that the program is heading in the right direction?
Yeah, I see competitiveness. I see a group of guys that come to battle every day, no matter the circumstance. So I think that's been a big tell of our season, how tough you are. I know sometimes you don't get the outcome you want. Sometimes seeing it from the outside in, it's not what you always want to see, especially as a fan base. I know it's tough. They poured their heart into this program, and I really want to give credit to them too. They were crazy tonight. They played their role and they played a big part in the game. But I think just being able to go into this offseason and know that it's the group of guys in this program. It's us. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Thank you guys. Appreciate you guys. Safe travel.